Analyst here at Markets.com, and today is Wednesday, ladies and gentlemen. Yes, we have arrived. We have arrived to the start of the interest rate decisions by big major central banks this week. So look, today we have the Bank of Canada and we have the Federal Reserve. So let's see what's going to happen. Let's dig in. Let's see how the market stands right now, where it could go, in a way where it could end up, so we can evaluate different scenarios. And yeah, hopefully you'll enjoy the session, ladies and gentlemen, and I'll see you in a bit. All right, ladies and gentlemen, hello, and good morning. My name is Darius Anucauskas, and I'm the Chief Market Analyst here at Markets.com, and today is Wednesday, ladies and gentlemen. Wednesday. We have finally arrived. We arrived to the day when we have we're kicking off the week of the big central bank decisions. Look, in general, long story short, I mean, we have the Bank of Canada, we have the Federal Reserve today delivering interest rates. Tomorrow we're going to have the BOE, Friday BOJ. But let's start with those two, the BOC and the Fed. Before we go any further, as always, let's quickly have a read through our risk disclaimer. So yes, the content we produce does not constitute investment advice or investment recommendation and should not be considered as such. This material should not be taken as an invitation to acquire any financial instrument or product. I'll give you a few seconds to read the rest. In the meantime, I will put my usual good morning in the chat room. Good morning, everyone. There we go. So yeah, ladies and gentlemen, I hope you're having a good trading week so far. Also, before we jump any further, let's quickly have a mentioning of our Markets.com website, which you can always check out for more information about us. If you have any questions, reach out to us. We'll be more than happy to assist. Also, just a quick mentioning of the webinar that's going to be happening next week on the 23rd, so feel free to join. I believe you can find some good stuff there, but okay, that's the vague description of the webinar, but basically briefly, this is going to be the webinar. This is going to be the second episode, basically, of the webinar. The first one was about the MACD at the end of last month. Now this one's going to be about the RSI, the Relative Strength Index, this is the point of the webinar is to basically show the most popular indicators and to kind of apply it in real life. So what we're going to do, we're going to run this one in real market action on our demo account, so you can check how it works, or we can actually, all of us can check how it works, if it works well or not. But look, I think it could be an interesting session, so join in. You'll find the link in the description of this webinar. And hey, yeah, let's go from there, ladies and gentlemen. Economic calendar very quickly. So this morning we got the UK inflation numbers. Look, in general, everything came out as expected, so nothing new, nothing major here. Inflation, the headline year on year remained the same at 3.8. The core did drop from 3.8 to 3.6. Everything is the same on the month-on-month, apart from the core did not have the forecast for some reason. But anyway, retail sales did come out close to previous numbers. That's fine, so it's okay. Nothing major here. Look, today's day gonna go further with the EU inflation numbers, and those are expected to be again in line with expectations. I mean, this is the interesting bit, because with EU numbers, it's always like that they come out as forecasted, as expected, and really kind of nothing much to say there. It's the moment if it deviates a lot. Now that's where the interesting bit comes in, and that's where it's really exciting to see when we have a bigger deviation. Doesn't matter, to the upside, to the downside still, and then the market kind of does better moves. But we are expecting the 2.1 still somewhat close to the ECB's target, and we know that that's 2%. But if it suddenly jumps above 2.1, I think that this is where the bank will have to start considering, maybe or I wouldn't say hiking straight away. No, I think that they will just have to become a little bit more worried, like concerned and stuff like that. So long story short, keep your eyes on that. That's going to be an interesting number there. And of course, the Bank of Canada. This is what we're watching. This is what we're looking out for. We are expecting the 25 basis point reduction in the current interest rate. They can afford to do that. Why? Because Canadian inflation is basically on the lower side. It's below inflation target of which the BOC has, and as always, it has the popular 2%. So the current headline year-on-year number sits currently at 1.7. Now look, let's have a look at this one just a second very quickly. It says on 1.7, but actually no, sorry, I'm gonna say that because yesterday, not 1. I'm looking at the old data yesterday. There we go. That's what I'm looking for. 1.9 came out at 1.9, not 1. I'm looking at the old data here for some reason it has not been updated. 1.9 number came out yesterday. So basically we're seeing that uptick. Certainly still within the bank's target of 2%. It's close to that target, but nevertheless, raising a little bit, and maybe the bank will have to say, oh, you know what, we will maybe slow down with our cuts going further. And again, this is what I'm kind of expecting, to be honest, from today's meeting, that they're still going to go and do that interest rate cut, but during the press conference they will say, you know what, I think that we need to calm down a little bit. I think the inflation started picking up again, so we don't want to overdo it. And looking at the picture here, I mean, you can see that 1.7, that's something that okay, look at 1.7, that's the old data. 1.9 it is right now, so it's basically right here. And in general, looking at this picture, if you remember, I talked about this and I talked about the US CPIs, where we have kind of a similar picture. And what I said, which is a little bit controversial, in that, look, if we do apply technical analysis on this whole picture here, then we have a strong decline and then a gradual decline, and then basically this kind of tends to break higher. Now, of course, jumping above 2%, that would be seen as a worrying sign. But this is what I said before, and I'll say it again. This is what I said on Monday, that at this point in our lives and this point in our times, everything is kind of taken very sensitively. And look, we were at levels like 6, 7 here, 5 back in 2022, back in 2023, of course, as well. So we were higher up here. And okay, somebody might say, oh, but like times were a little bit different. We had like some extraordinary moments. True. I wouldn't deny that, but still, the fact stays the fact. The inflation was very, very high. Now it kind of lowered down, and now everything is like when we're getting closer to like 3% or like something like 4% on the UK side, then everybody starts to panic. So look, I don't want to say that we should not care. No, we do need to care, but just kind of take everything with a pinch of salt, right? For now, yes, there is a moment that we could see a push back up, but we need more data. It needs to really go higher for like at least like I don't know, like half a year or something like that, and then I think the central bank gets worried a little bit. So long story short, for now we're expecting this drop. I'm going to jump into the Forex world, where I'm going to pick up on the Canadian dollar in a bit, because again, this drop might not be the best option for the Canadian dollar. It could weaken, but against other currencies apart from the US dollar. Because why? Because the USA is also delivering. The Federal Reserve is delivering a big announcement today. Of course, another 25 basis point cut. That's going to be the first one. Let me just jump into the chart right here. So that's going to be the first one this year, basically the first cut. And the question for everybody right now is it going to be 25 basis points, or is it actually going to be 50? Now, according to the Fed Watch tool, we have a 4% probability for a 50 basis point cut. Now, look, I really doubt that the 50% will happen unless it's going to be a super announcement where the Fed would really like to please the U.S. government. It's an interesting moment. Like I said, it's a very interesting moment. There is, of course, drama happening right now with one of the governors, Cook, and the new appointee, Miran, or Myron, or what's his surname? Anyway, you got the picture. So there's, like I said, there's this drama, and let's see what's going to happen here. I think, like I said, I really doubt that they're going to go for a 50 basis point cut unless they really want to, I don't know, like shake up the market here a little bit. But if they're going to go for the 50, then they might lose their credibility, and that's what the Fed kind of needs to worry about, because at the moment we know that the Fed is seen as this independent entity which is appointed by the U.S. government. It's basically the governors of the Fed are appointed by the president, but it needs to go also through Senate. So the Senate needs to agree on that. So yeah, but again, it's the government should not be intervening into the decision making of the Fed. Again, it's for some maybe it looks a little bit weird how that's possible. Well, I would say this way, that that's the front picture, that's the cover of the book. The cover of the book can say whatever it wants, but actually the content of the book, that's what matters. And it might actually differ sometimes from the cover. Well, not saying anything, right? Anyway, so we're watching either way. We're watching the rate decision. We're expecting a 25 basis point cut. This could weaken the US dollar. We'll see in a moment how all the currencies look right now. But certainly, yes, we're watching this one. And of course, it's the big dot plot announcement, the big meeting basically, where they're going to give their 1 year, 2 year, 3 year projections, interest rate projections. So we'll see where they stand and how this could shape up. Are we going to see some potentially more cuts going into next year, or actually is this kind of where we're going to stay? Let's see. So yeah, in terms of that, apart from that, there's not much happening, to be honest. I think everybody's going to be just sitting in their hands and waiting for the rate decisions. Tomorrow, of course, we're going to have the BOE interest rate decision. Those guys there are not really planning to do anything, keeping the rate unchanged at 4. But look, surprises might happen. However, at British levels of inflation, I doubt that they need a surprise to the downside here. So the current inflation sits at around 3.8. Let me just double check that, unless the data here is very old as well. No, we have today, yes. So wait. So yes, I'm sorry. What am I talking about? This morning we got the inflation number. So I just talked about that. Wow, just wait. 3.8. Yeah. So basically that's still bad. So 3.8 still above BOE's target of 2%, almost double. So long story short, again, tomorrow I don't think that they're gonna do much. I think what's gonna be interesting to me, at least, if this number right here, 7. That's what we're expecting. That's how many MPC members will be for to keep the rate unchanged. But if this number actually is going to be on the lower side, and more will shift into having a cut. If by any chance there is one person who's going to be in favor of a hike, now that's going to be an interesting moment. Now that's where the excitement could come in, because we could see the pound maybe rallying a little bit against its major counterparts. So keep that in mind. But again, for now, these are the forecasts. We're expecting 2 members to be for a cut, 7 for and to keep the rates unchanged. But if, like I said, we have a mix here, a bigger mix of a bigger spread of numbers. Or a total change of numbers, then yes, this is where the exciting bit could come in for the pound traders. So yeah, and of course the Bank of Japan will be tomorrow on Friday, so I'll pick up on that during my Friday's show. Ladies and gentlemen, let's jump into the charts very quickly. Japan. So yes, we're, of course, the BOJ is waiting for interest rate decision, but look. The moment I think that the BOJ, I think that the Nikkei here, what am I talking about? Like honestly, I went blank there. Nikkei is waiting for the BOJ decision, but Nikkei I think will have a bigger reaction on the Fed after the Fed. So keep your eyes on that. Keep your eyes on the cash indices. Certainly, yes, the Bank of Japan is expected to keep rates unchanged. Where is that? There we go. For now, they're expecting to go for a hike next month. So in a way, I think that the Nikkei could remain elevated for now. So keep that in mind. Let's jump into China. Where's my China disappeared? Let's have a look. China A50. Is there a neutral one? Right. Okay. Yeah. No, we don't want other brokers here. Okay. Look, I'll grab the I'll grab this one, the futures. So what we're looking at here is a nice, beautiful move here on the futures, and I think that yes, so far everything looks quite positive. I think we're on the right track of trying to make our way here towards this highest point of 2024, near the 16,359 zone-ish, approximately around here. I think it's a good target. Looking at this picture here, it looks like a nice bullish flag. Hey, either way, a confirmation break is needed, so maybe a clearance through the 15,250 zone could do the trick for some buyers. Let's jump into the US. So of course, I think that the cash index will remain subdued up until the meeting. So there's no point of kind of moving around in a way, right? If you maybe like a little bit of a strong move up and then a strong move down, the opposite way, a strong move up and a strong move down. Maybe then yes, this way we could see some action. You know, this could confuse the market a little bit. This is something that happens occasionally before big announcements like this, and then yeah. But look, in general, if you're looking for some higher levels, very simple. Wait for a push. Wait for a push above the current all-time high. Let me just thin it this one. So 46,175. Yep. Let me just double check if this is the case. Yep. That's the current highest point here on the futures. And by the way, on the cash index, let's have a look what's happening here on the cash index. Yes. So basically, looking at this is 45,138. Yep, there we go. So basically 46,000. Let's have a look at the cash index actually. If we clear this barrier, yes, of course, I'm going higher. I'm going to go for that 46,000 and a half zone. Of course, then, you know, if we continue to rally, then it's the 47,000. But look, in general, I think that everybody's now like looking at the 50,000 on the Dow. I mean, that would be a symbolic, psychological level, which the index could reach. I think that a lot of traders are looking at that. I think there is still potential. The market is way elevated, but there is a moment that it could still travel higher. Look, very quickly on the S&P 500, similar story. Yesterday we created a new all-time high, and we drifted back down. But again, if it clears the current all-time high, I'm going to go higher. NASDAQ as well. Good result yesterday, created a new all-time high. But look, NASDAQ is forming something like a shooting star here. S&P also looks like a nice little shooting star. So yeah, in a way, these are reversal signs. And I'll say it this way: if we do push higher, let's say on the S&P and the NASDAQ higher, we do push higher, but we fail to overcome the current all-time high, then yes, that's a bearish indication for me. If we do go and overcome the current all-time high, create a new one, but we struggle to close above the then at that moment then the previous all-time high, which at this point right now is this one, the current. But then yes, it's also a bearish indication. So we do have room for some bearishness. And but if we do stay above the current all-time high, then yeah, I think that more upside could follow. But again, we're taking everything with a pinch of salt. We're taking everything very carefully. So let's see how this is going to play out. For now, there's no much reason for like becoming very bearish, I think. Although the market, yes, it's overstretched. I want to show you the monthly chart here, if I can get some data. Actually, you know what? Let me just jump into the S&P 500 and let me just go into the big chart here. There we go. That's what I'm looking at here. Yes, SPX. There we go. That's the one. So this is what I want to show you. And basically, this is the monthly chart on the S&P, and it has quite big history. This is I'm looking at the trading on the trading view chart. Look, this parabolic move, it has to end at some point. Not that I'm trying to, raise fear here. I'm just saying that whatever comes up must come down, and we did have a decent correction in April. Everybody was panicking then. Thank you very much, the current U.S. administration. But I think that it was all planned, and it was a great, moment to pick up some stocks, which good value stocks, because there were plans, probably big plans for the government, and everybody was just kind of went on a shopping spree when all the market kind of drifted lower. And look, we are at a very interesting spot, and I think that yes, the 7,000 zone on the S&P is quite interesting, and I think it's quite doable, to be honest, judging from this parabolic move. But you know what? If you know that how these moves end up being, we end up with a crash. But I'm not, like I said, I'm not trying to scare anybody here very much, but in general, this doesn't end up very pretty. Look, we are we're pushing higher here. We're I think that there is, like I said, still room. I think everybody's talking about the psychological 7,000 zone, but then yeah, it's to me, this chart looks worrying. The same story I can say on the Dow. Let me just have a look here with the bigger data. There we go. So look at Dow as well. Dow has still room, yes. 46,700 something, 48,000. I think that's a good target here. And yeah, it's also look at this. Look at this madness here. This is quite, I don't know, ridiculous. I think I don't want to say anything, right? I mean, but this looks very concerning, and certainly, if when we look at the this moment here back in the Big Depression, if you look at this moment right here, look at the parabolic move on this as well. Look at the madness here. That was crazy. That was just insane. So we're currently also experiencing something like this, and this kind of resulted in a big market crash here. We even fell below some of the levels here back in the the beginning of the 20th century. So like I said, these are interesting times we're going through, and I think that what you need to do right now is pile up on cash, because when the times come, I think that this is what could happen in a way. Let's see what's going to happen, of course, but certainly the market, I'm not, like I said, again, I do sound right now like a very big pessimist, but honestly, like this is like I see similarities, and it would be wrong not to see these similarities. Anyway, but we need a bigger parabolic move here, so I think that there's still more upside to go. So let's see what's going to happen here. Yes, so ladies and gentlemen, let's go back into the daily chart and let's jump into the dollar index. So there we go, looking good. Look, I talked about this in the beginning of this week. I talked about it, and this is, not here. I said that, look, I'm aiming for this lowest point of this year, the current lowest point of this year, near the $96 mark, 96 level, and we came very close. We surpassed this little barrier, something that I mentioned as well, the 96.89, 90 zone here. So that's going great. We surpassed that, and now the question is, can we reach this area? I think, look, I think that the upcoming interest rate cut is, of course, right now working negatively or is having its negative effect on the US dollar. Of course, that's understandable. But what we're going to be looking at or listening to, we're going to be listening to Jerome Powell and what he has to say about future guidance in terms of, like, in general, we're having the big dot plot, so we're gonna see where are they expecting to see, what are we expecting, what kind of projections are we expecting for going when going further. Are we seeing more cuts? If so, then the US dollar could drift further south. Not that it's something very bad for the US government, because at the moment they're making their exports more attractive on the global arena, and we understand that the U.S. exports are mainly consisting, mainly of weapons. So it's more, attractive to buy U.S. weapons right now for other countries. So yeah, that works well in that sense. Does it work well for the U.S. consumer? Not quite, but still okay, still manageable. Anyway, jumping into the German index DAX. Look, yesterday we had a bit of a nice decline here, and let me just adjust this very quickly. I want to change the line here. There we go. So yesterday we got the drop. I talked about this a lot, and I said, look, keep your eyes on this little short-term upside line, which was here. There we go. We managed to break it, and there we go. Like I said, it's a beautiful move to the downside. Also, we tested this area right here, the 23,376. So we're currently resting here. If we do clear this, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going lower. I'm going for my next target here around the 23,000 zone, near that. I think it's a good target. So let's see if we can reach that. But for that, we need to see a drop below this area first. So let's keep an eye on that. In terms of the upside, for me to shift my attention to some higher levels, I think that a break of this downside line, which is, again, it's a very tentative line. Don't get me wrong, it's not the best picture here, but certainly if we do get a clearance of this downside line, then yes, I'm going to consider a move to the upside. So right now then, very quickly on the FTSE 100, let's have a look here on the cash index. Beautiful double top here. I think this is what we can call it. So beautiful double top, and in that case, we are looking at the neckline. The neckline now, it's not really on a horizontal line here. I think it's going to be tilted a little bit. I think it's somewhere among these lines here, because I think this upside line is a good indication of a possible neckline here. So if we look, either way, it does coincide nicely here, almost coincides nicely with my 50-day EMA and the lower side of the Bollinger Band here. So if we do clear this area, then I will consider some moves to the downside. So, ladies and gentlemen, let's jump into the Forex world very quickly, because that's going to be affected today. AUDUSD, let's have a look. So far, the pair has been moving on a strong, on a strong trajectory. We're moving nicely to the upside, and at the moment, I think we can actually draw this upside line right here, taken from the low of the 22nd of August. So any move up until this upside line could be seen as a temporary correction before another possible leg of buying. But if we do clear this upside line, then yes, certainly more sellers here could join in. So keep that in mind. AUDJPY, this had a great move. Also still on an uptrend here, trading higher. And yes, the big question is, can we go further north? Well, at the moment, I am looking at this 98.42 zone, and if we do clear this area, yes, great, more buyers could join in, and I'll target this little area right here around 99.16, marked by the highest point of this year, ladies and gentlemen, the current highest point of this year. Let's see if we can overcome that. AUDNZD, one of my favorite ones. Look, I talked about this idea here, and I talked about a possible rising channel. Now, look, this rising channel is a little bit on the subjective side, I would say. You know, we can draw it this way, and let me just grab this text. No, I don't need a text. Yeah, so we can grab this here, and we can draw it this way. So let me just, you know what, I need to make it longer a little bit. So this is what I am talking about. There we go. So let me just extend this a little bit more here. So yeah, and this is the other line here. So basically we have this nice upside line, and this nice upside line is something that I'm keeping, you know, keeping a lookout for, because look, I talked about the possibility of a reversal here on the AUDNZD, but so far, I mean, we keep on testing the upper side, so we need some sort of clearance here, better clearance. And for me, I think I will stick to this little hurdle, because we had already a few drops below it, below the 1.1155. We failed to stay below that, so it's a good area to watch. That's the high of the 4th of September. So if we do drop below that, I will consider a bit of a move here to the downside. Jumping into other pairs like EURUSD, ladies and gentlemen. So we had a great run. Look at this. We overcame yesterday the previous highest point of this year, near the 1.1830, and we created a new high for the year. So now the question is, can we stay above this previous high? If we can, great, I'm going to go further north. So basically something like this. But if we somehow start dropping back down, and for that you need a stronger US dollar, which I'm not like I said, I don't see it being stronger unless it's going to rebound from that key area of support, which I talked already about. Look, I think for the downside here, the better option would be to wait for a break below this upside line, and then we could go from there. So at the moment, the pair looks strong. Let's see how strong it will remain today. EUROJPY, we are at a very interesting spot. I talked about this triangle pattern here. It's in this nice ascending triangle pattern where we're currently knocking on the door of the upper side of it. So if you're looking for some higher levels, then yes, certainly there is a chance of clearing this area. If we do clear, yes, I'm going to go higher. In terms of the next target, certainly the highest point of July of 2024. I think that's a good aim here. Let's aim for that one. Let's target that. For the downside, I would prefer to wait for a drop below this upside line, and then yes, we could go from there. We could start shifting our attention towards, you know, this little area right here, then this little area right here. So yeah, it could be some interesting moments here. Also, Euro GBP, one I wanted to pick up on here. Yes, the euro is a little bit on the stronger side against the pound, but the question is, you know, why are we struggling with this barrier right here? In general, this whole area. And if we do clear this area, then yes, I'm going to go higher. But at the moment, I don't want to say anything, but certainly there is room for a down move as well. So let's keep in mind that. But certainly, yes, for now, it's something that I'm watching here. So let's see what's going to happen on this side. In general, we're looking at a triangle. We're looking at a symmetrical triangle pattern here. So a clearance through one of the sides would be required. Jumping into, let's have a quick look at GBP. Oh, actually, no. You know what? Let's have a look at the US dollar against the Japanese yen, because that's going to be the big show today. If you remember, I talked about a rising channel, something like that. So, I talked about this idea here. And actually, I think that I need to reiterate that, you know what, it's no longer a rising channel. I think it's going to be more of a rising veg pattern. So, something like this maybe. Again, maybe it's like trying to see something where it's not, but you know what, I'm gonna keep it for now. So but of course, for me, the main story right now is what's gonna happen with the with this little range, which we're breaking right now to the downside. And yep, if we do remain outside here on the lower side, then certainly there's more downside to come. But the problem that I'm having here right now is that yes, we dropped. We're currently staying slightly below this lower side of this range, which is drawn this way. Because again, you could debate that. Maybe you could say, what about this? Maybe this is the range. You're not going to be wrong here as well. So that's why, to be a little bit more on the safe side, we can rather draw it this way. The 146.21 zone is on the lower side. On the higher side, the 148.80. So if we do clear this whole area right there, I will consider a move to the downside. In general, look, weaker dollar because of the interest rate cuts. That's one thing. I think the market understands that there's going to be a cut, and that's why the US dollar is weakening. But what market doesn't understand is, first of all, are we actually going to get the 50 basis point cut, which I don't think so, but surprises happen. And the other thing is, if we don't get a 50 basis point cut, if we only get a 25 basis point cut, then is the Fed going to say that they're willing to go further with the cuts in a way, and that's what could bring the US dollar lower. The stock market, if suddenly it reverses south very strongly, Japanese yen buying could increase, because again, everybody will be jumping into safe havens, and yes, this is where the Japanese yen could come in. USDCAD. Now, one of the pairs that we're looking at very carefully today is this one. Because why? Because you have the BOC and you have the Fed. Both are going for the rate cuts. Both kind of scenarios are weakening the domestic currencies. Now, what I want to say here is that looking at the technical picture, you see there could be something of a head and shoulders pattern. Left shoulder here, head, right shoulder, neckline around here somewhere. If we clear that neckline, yes, great. I will go a little bit more to the downside. If we're looking at some, a possible target, I think that this is what we can watch for now, at least. So if, long story short, if we do drop below the 1.3720, I will go towards this upside line. For the upside, now, okay, I think I will take a very conservative approach here, and I will just kind of wait for a break of this downside line taken from the highest point of August. And if we can get that break, wonderful. I think more buyers here could join in. Jumping into GBPUSD very quickly. So look, the inflation numbers did not come out higher in UK, and we're seeing a little bit of retracement here on the pound side, but still, nevertheless, it remains elevated. It still remains somewhat bullish, I would say, and we could go further north than that, unless it's something of a rising veg, but it's too early to say that. So that's why I'm not, going in with that idea yet. What I'm going in with is, can we stay above this territory, this 1.3588? If we can continue trading above that area, I'm leaning towards the upside, right, like this. Ladies and GBPJPY, actually, very quickly, we got the pop in a way. I talked about this, and we got the pop. There we go. But it was kind of ended up being something of a false breakout, especially looking at this weekly chart. You can see that. So, a long story short, yes, we're drifting a little bit more to the downside right now, but But yeah, this upside line is still in play. I think that it could still provide good support. Now let's jump into, ladies and gentlemen, let me just close all these. Commodities, ladies and gentlemen, gold. Look at this. Gold is really drifting to the downside. After hitting that psychological 3,700 zone yesterday, it is now selling off really hard. Look at this. Dropping like I said, like crazy. Especially you can see it on the 30-minute chart here, drifting lower. So I think that we could end up traveling maybe towards the on the 1-hour chart towards the 100-day EMA, the 30-minute towards the 200-day EMA. It's around 3,660, so I think it's a good target. And then we'll see. Maybe we could rebound again. Like I said, a lot will depend on the Fed today. If the Fed comes out with some more projections to the downside on the rates, we could see gold maybe reversing and pushing nicely to the upside. Yes, so keep your eyes on that. Like I said, very interesting developments right now happening. In the market. So we're below 3,670, but we were at 3,700. So quite a decent move south right now, but maybe it's a part of a deeper correction before another possible leg of buying. Silver, look at this silver, boom, to the downside, looking good in a way, selling off nicely here. And okay, look, I think it's a nice little correction. That's fine. That's no doubt. Maybe it could be an opportunity for the buyers to step in. But for me, I think what I'm going to do here is, look, I can try to draw these, but I think that that's not going to be a very logical move here to do that. So I think trying to find some sort of logic here. So I'm trying to find some sort of a good area of support. This one, I think, the one 41.45. I think it's a good area of resistance. It was a good area of resistance previously. Support now. Let's see what's going to happen here. If we can clear this, I think that it could lead to a larger correction back down. Jumping into palladium very quickly, drifting nicely to the downside. However, I think we're going to be stuck now. I think we will start coiling up on palladium. I think we're now above this. We're still above this upside line taken from the lowest point of April, but at the same time we created a lower high. We created a lower high, and that means that there is a possibility for, like I said, for a coiling up moment happening. So that's why we could see some trading action in between these two trend lines, but the bigger interesting thing could come in if we do clear one of these trend lines. Platinum is okay. I like the idea of a downside, but a confirmation break is needed. So we need a clearance here of this upside line. If we can get that nice clearance, amazing. I will go further south here. I will go to the downside, and let's keep an eye on this here. 1,269 or 70, let's round it up. I think that could be a nice good target here for platinum, but again, a clearance of this upside line is required. The downside scenario is, the upside scenario is in the break of this upside line, period. We're also coiling up here on platinum, similar as with palladium. Copper, yes, there we go. Beautiful rejection from the 200-day EMA. I'm loving this. And because of what I said to you previously, that looks like a bearish flag to me. So look, we have been rejected from this area of these EMAs. Now we're drifting lower. Am I getting very bearish? No, not yet, because I need a break below this upside line. I want to be a little bit more on the safe side. If we can get that move, I will go to the downside, and I will aim. If we break this upside line, I'll aim for the lowest point of July, near the 4.33, but to be honest, I think it could be just a little temporary obstacle on the way lower. Oil is a little bit annoying right now because I'm still aiming for that. I'm still aiming for that $60 mark, to be honest, that psychological $60 mark, but at the moment we're just bouncing around here, and I think that this is a good area of support, 61.43. If we can get a nice clearance of that one, great. I'll go to the downside, I'll go lower. But it's not happening yet. It's not happening yet, so we're waiting for this one to, well, to happen in a way. This downside line, I cannot draw it this way. I have to draw it from here. I think that this is a little bit more feasible, but what I'm seeing here, we're breaking this tentative downside resistance line, I would say, because it's really again, it's really subjective. I mean, we're now breaking it, but I think that the priority here, if you're looking for some higher levels, I think that wait for at least a push back above the $66 mark here. If we can get that move, I think more buyers could join in. Jumping into natural gas very quickly, and natural gas pushing back up, trying to climb back above that 3 level. Let's look, for me, the upside scenario probably will be from here somewhere, 3.19 area. That's my upside scenario. Again, but only up until this downside line. Very simple. I do understand it's very close, but yeah, I just don't want to overdo it. With the downside scenario, I think that you need to see a break of this upside line, a little short-term upside support line, and this 2.89 zone. If we can get a nice clearance of that, then yes, great. I will go lower here, 2.68. If that gets cleared, the forthcoming lower low would be confirmed. So you have something like this. Jumping into coffee very quickly, my beloved coffee. There we go, rallying beautifully. I talked a lot about coffee. I talked about this downside line, which we managed to reach and then eventually break. So that's a great result. So now, look, yes, there is still room for some upside, but we're finding good resistance near this 418.19 zone. If we do overcome it, 440.41 is my next good target. Cocoa. Still somewhat on the bearish side, but I need this clearance of this little territory, this 7,205 zone. Get a nice clearance. Yes, we could go lower. Yep, I will consider a move towards these areas right there. First, I think it's this one that's going to be an interesting one, 6,822. But then, yeah, certainly. If you're looking for some higher levels in cocoa, very straightforward for now at least. I need a clearance of this downside line right here. If we can get that, I think I'll consider some moves to the upside. Look, sugar, my beloved sugar. Okay, look, it looks quite positive in my opinion, but yes, confirmation break of this. Well, not only a break, I need also the body of the daily candle remaining above this area in order to go to the upside, further upside. But at the moment, we're finding, there is still risk of the downside, but my downside is on a break below the 15.42 zone right here. Cotton pushing back up. Okay, interesting. Pushing back up. Let's see if this works here. Yep, if we can get a nice break of this downside line, I would say, yeah, I think this is going to open the door to some higher areas. 65.73 is something that I'm watching, and 64.30 is the next good target, and certainly yes, there are some, like I said, there are some options here for the upside. So, but again, the break is needed. Simple as that. And ladies and gentlemen, for dessert, let's jump into the crypto world before we run out of time. So Bitcoin, very quickly on Bitcoin, there we go, pushing higher, slowly, quietly, without any major headlines or anything. We're pushing back up towards the 120 side, 120,000 side, of course. Yeah, look, the all-time highs still on the table, 124,000 here, a little bit above that. I think that could be a good target, but first I think we need to overcome this barrier right here, this 117,400 zone. If we overcome it, I think there is a good chance of traveling towards the all-time high. Ethereum. Ethereum is a little bit on the modest side, I would say. It's I would like to see a clearance of this 4,765 zone. Then I'll go for this area right here, the all-time high. And of course, the psychological 5,000 zone is that's what everybody is watching, and and then we'll take it from there. But at the moment, I would say we're a little bit on the struggling side with the upside. However, there is hope. Hope dies the last. But if we suddenly break this upside line right here, taken from the low of the 20th of August, then yes, I will consider a move towards that low of the 20th of August. Very quickly on Bitcoin Cash. Why did I didn't put Bitcoin Cash here? There we go. We cleared the 600 zone again. And this is so far, it's an important barrier that we're watching. 600 zone, 605 as well. You can keep an eye on that one. And yeah, look, if we clear that one, at the same time, we could clear this downside line right here. And if we do so, yeah, I think we're opening the door to some higher levels. I think that there is room for some further upside here. We do have some, these are not all-time highs. We have some all-time highs kind of back here. Back in, let's say this is the 2021. So look, that's where's the level here? Let me just mark this. There we go, 1,600. If we're looking at Bitcoin Cash, then it still has potential, right, at these levels. So just keep that in mind, ladies and gentlemen. Now, jumping into Ripple. Ripple is still holding around that 3 level, that psychological 3 level. I think it's still hugging that and loving that. So we need some sort of clarity here, but at the moment I'm not getting anything. So what I'm gonna do here is I'm gonna monitor this situation right there. This little downside line taken from the high of the 8th of August, or should I say the highest point of August. If we clear this downside line, then yes, great, more buyers could join in. We could target this little area here, the 3.38, and then we'll just kind of take it from there. For the downside, I would like to see a break below this upside line. It's quite a steep one, so if we can get a nice clearance of that one and we can fall below the 50-day EMA, which is shown as the green line, I think that this could present a nice opportunity for a few sellers. But again, we're examining only the short term for now. Litecoin, let's see what's happening here. Bouncing around, nothing major to be honest. So yeah, it's look, I'll take a very conservative approach. For the upside, I need to see a push above the 120 zone. For the downside, for the downside. Now, this is where I think the upside line is required. So maybe a break of this upside line here, taken from the low of the 8th of, or should I say the lowest point of August. And again, it's very subjective because again, it depends on how you're going to draw this. And what I'm saying here is that, you can draw it this way and kind of makes sense, a little bit. But for everybody's different, so just kind of try to apply your own logic on this. I mean, at the moment, I would say I will start looking at some lower levels if we do fall below the current lowest point of this week. Very quickly on Dogecoin, and I'm going to wrap up, and then we're going to look at Polkadot. Dogecoin had a great run, great result. Now a little bit of retracement. That's absolutely fine. My only question is the retracement going to be all the way here towards this upside line again? Because again, if this one retraces, this one retraces. But I'm not going to start looking at some higher levels unless we start clearing the 0.3065 level. Polkadot fell back below the 200-day EMA. So great, jump here initially. There we go, drifting back down. So I would say if you're looking for some higher levels, then yeah, probably wait for that 4.63 push. But at this, or at least a push above the 200-day EMA. Look, ladies and gentlemen, I mean, at this point we're very careful here because again, Polkadot is not the. It has negativity around it. But still, it's a crypto that attracts traders. And looking at this picture, it seems like we're forming something of an ascending triangle pattern, maybe. But let's not rush into conclusions yet. And finally, Tron. Tron is becoming one of my favorite ones here. Look, we had a great run, but wait, so we're still somewhat positive. Maybe we're seeing a little bit of a retracement before another possible leg of buying. So if we continue to trade above all my EMAs on the daily chart here, yep, you know what? I'm going to stick to the upside. I think, yep, I think that's quite logical here. In terms of the downside, a drop below the 50 could open the door to the 100-day EMA, and then maybe towards the 200-day EMA. So let's not, of course, not rush into things, but this is what I'm going to keep an eye on. If we do fall below the 50-day EMA, then yes, I'm going to lean a little bit more towards the downside. Ladies and gentlemen, that is a wrap. That is a wrap. Thank you very much for watching and listening. I really appreciate your time. Ladies and gentlemen, like I said, be careful today. We have, don't be surprised if we don't see much action before the events, before the BOC and the Fed. If we, then after that, of course, try not to be exposed too much into the market, because what we could see is a little bit of a choppy session, up and down moves, and yeah, that's where the issue kind of then could arise. So be careful, have your stop losses in place, risk only what you can afford to lose, don't overtrade, and everything will be fine. And I shall see you next time on Friday. Yep, as always, 6 o'clock GMT time. Thank you very much, and bye-bye.